I still hear the bells sometimes, not like tinnitus, not some ringing in the back of my head. These are sharp, hollow, carried on the wind as if the mountains themselves won't let me forget. It started on a night I wish I could erase. We've been called to assist a missing persons case along the Appalachian ridges, near the West Virginia-Kentucky line. Dense country, hard terrain, the kind of place where a broken leg means you're staying out there until someone hikes you out. The sheriff's department had already lost contact with 2 of their deputies, who went searching for 3 hikers. That's when the Guard and my Coast Guard unit got pulled in. Joint ops aren't unusual when manpower runs thin, but I remember thinking even then that something felt off. We were inserted by convoy just before dark. Our trucks crawled along the winding road until the gravel gave out. Fog was already rolling down from the ridges, swallowing the tree line. No cell coverage. Radio spotty, normal for Appalachia. Still that night, the silence pressed heavier than usual. I kept glancing out the side of the Humvee at the endless woods, the kind of woods where you can swear something's moving just outside your vision. My buddy Torres sat across from me, cleaning the lens of his NVGs like he always did when he got nervous. "Just another hiker job," I told him. He nodded, but he didn't look convinced. We set up a temporary command post near an abandoned ranger station. Generator lights hummed. Maps spread on the hood of a Humvee. Our orders were simple: sweep the grid until we found the hikers or the missing deputies. If they weren't moving, FLIR should have picked them up. But the thermal drone came back empty. No body heat, no campfires, just endless, dark forest. By 2020, we split into 2 fire teams. My squad pushed west toward an old trailhead where the deputies had last checked in. The forest swallowed us quickly. Flashlights barely cut through the mist. Every sound seemed amplified. Boots on wet leaves, gear straps creaking, radios hissing static. Halfway up the ridge, I heard it. A bell. Not close, but clear enough to stop me mid-step. It wasn't wind chimes or a cowbell. It was the sharp toll of a church bell, deep and hollow, echoing through the valley. "Hold!" I raised my fist. The squad froze. "Anybody else hear that?" I asked. Torres whispered, "Yeah." Church bells, which didn't make sense. We weren't anywhere near a town. The map showed no structures for miles, just trails, creeks, and forest. The bell rang again. One long toll, then silence. My squad leader, Jackson, keyed his mic. "Command, you got anything on UAV? Any structures?" Command came back negative, just trees and rock. We pushed on. The higher we climbed, the colder it felt, like the fog itself was bleeding through our uniforms. My breath hung heavy in the beam of my flashlight. Every few minutes, the bell tolled again. Sometimes once, sometimes twice. Always the same distance, never closer, never farther. After an hour, we broke through a clearing, and there it was. A church. White siding, cracked but standing. A bell tower rising above the trees, dark windows like empty eyes. Floodlights from our rifles caught fresh tire ruts in the mud, as if vehicles had been here recently. The door hung open. No one said anything at first. We just stared. A church in the middle of nowhere, not marked on any map, not on satellite. The kind of place you'd expect to see in some forgotten corner of history. Not in the middle of our search grid. Torres muttered, "No way this is on record." Then the bell tolled again, but this time we were close enough to see the tower. And no one was up there. The rope that should have hung from the bell was gone. The wheel didn't move. Yet the sound rolled through the valley, loud enough to rattle my chest. That's when Jackson ordered us to stack up on the door. I'll never forget the weight in my gut as we lined up, rifles ready, the hollow echo of that bell still in our ears. We had no idea what we were about to walk into. All I knew was that if those hikers or deputies had come here, we were standing at the same threshold they had crossed, and none of them had come back. We didn't breach right away. Jackson gave the hand signal and we pulled back into the tree line. Nobody said it, but the way we all looked at that church told me we were thinking the same thing. Something wasn't right. Command wanted confirmation. Jackson relayed what we saw, and the reply came back sharp. "Negative on structures, no church in that grid. Push recon, report back." We looked at each other. The building was right there in front of us, lit by our flashlights, 2 stories with a tower that clawed at the sky. but the drone had missed it. Command said it didn't exist. That was the moment the unease set in. Jackson made the call. "We clear it. Standard sweep." We stacked on the door. I went second, Torres behind me. The hinges groaned when Jackson pushed it open. Our rifle lights cut through dust and darkness. Inside looked abandoned, but not ancient. Plastic folding chairs lined the walls, a sound system set on a table, extension cords running along the floor. A cross hung over the pulpit, not wood but steel, welded together like something you'd see in a machine shop. Fresh water bottles sat stacked in the corner. Not old, not forgotten. Someone had been here recently. We swept the rooms one by one, offices with laptops still plugged in, chargers blinking, a kitchen with MRE wrappers in the trash. Everything about it screamed present day, but no one was there. No hikers, no deputies. Just silence and the faint smell of oil from the generator out back. Torres whispered, "It's like they just stepped out." We regrouped in the main hall. Jackson radioed the findings. Command didn't like it. They wanted us to pull hard drives, mark coordinates, and prepare for extraction at dawn. That should have been the end of it. Just another strange sight in the middle of nowhere. But then the bell rang again. It was deafening inside the church. The walls shook. My rifle vibrated in my hands. We rushed outside, expecting to see someone in the tower. Nothing. The bell was still, yet the sound poured down the valley like thunder. I caught Torres looking at me, his face pale. He didn't have to say it. I felt the same thing. It wasn't possible. That night we set perimeter security instead of bedding down inside. 4 tents pitched near the tree line, generator lights humming. I was on second watch with Torres. The fog never left, curling around the beams of our flashlights. Every so often I swore I heard footsteps just outside the light, crunching on gravel. When we checked, nothing. At 0300 the bell started again. 3 long tolls, then silence. Torres muttered, "No hands, man. No hands on that bell." He kept repeating it under his breath until I told him to knock it off, but I couldn't shake the words. By morning, Command rerouted the second fire team to us. They wanted a joint sweep of the valley, cross-grid. The missing deputies were still unaccounted for. The hikers, too. Over breakfast rations, we kept things light, like soldiers do. Jokes about how Torres jumped at squirrels. Jackson lecturing us about conserving batteries. Normal chatter. But underneath, I felt it. Everyone did. The kind of tension that doesn't show in words but in how fast a man eats. How often he checks his gear. How his eyes keep flicking toward the tree line. That day, we expanded the search. Drones up again. Still no heat signatures. Just endless woods, empty roads, black rivers cutting through the ridges. By midday, we stumbled onto the first trail of the missing deputies. Their cruiser was off-road, nose first in a ditch, doors wide open. Radios dead, lights still on. But no sign of them. Blood on the driver's seat. Not much, but enough to mark a fight. Jackson made the call to push deeper. Command agreed. We humped for hours. The ridges rose and fell, fog sliding in and out like a tide. Every so often the bell rang. Not constant, but enough to keep us all on edge. Always the same distance, never closer or farther, no matter how much ground we covered. By dusk, we came across the first signs of hikers. A torn backpack, crushed energy bars, a broken trekking pole. But no people, just gear scattered like they dropped everything and run. That night we camped again. No fire, just cold meals and whispered talk. I tried to sleep, but the bell came again, closer now, sharper. Torres shook me awake, eyes wide. "You heard it too, right?" I nodded. It was then I realized something that made my stomach twist. The bell didn't echo like normal sound. It didn't fade across the valley. It was inside us, like it rang in our bones. And I swear in that moment, I thought I saw lights moving through the fog. Not lanterns, not flashlights. A pale glow, shifting between the trees, drifting toward the church. We didn't speak of it in the morning. Soldiers don't talk about shadows and lights. But I saw Jackson staring at the same tree line, jaw tight, hands flexing at his side. He'd seen it too. We were supposed to be on a rescue mission. Find the missing. Bring them back. But by then, deep down, I think we all knew the truth. This wasn't about finding anyone. It was about what was waiting for us inside that valley. Morning came thin and gray. Dew clung to the tents and the generator cables like sweat. I woke stiff, tasted metal on the air, and did what I always do before a long day in the field. Check gear, batteries, optics, plates. I wiped my rifle bolt and listened to the quiet. No birds, no insects. Just fog moving through trees like breath. Jackson gathered us on the gravel. The second fire team rolled in at first light, 4 silhouettes stepping out of a truck with steaming exhaust. Their team leader was Singh, a calm guy with eyes that missed nothing. We bumped fists, no ceremony. He looked past me at the church. "Command still says that building isn't on the grid," he said. "It's on mine," I said. He nodded once. "Copy." We laid out the plan on a tablet. Sectors A through D. Our squad would push west, river cut and switchbacks. Singh's team would sweep the eastern slope and swing back to the church by noon. Chen would run the small quad, then the fixed wing. If we found the deputies or the hikers, we would call it and converge. Normal, clean, a day of work. Torres and I checked each other's rigs. He tapped his chest cam. "On." I tapped mine. "On." Ruiz, our medic, stuffed tourniquets into side pouches and chewed an energy bar like it insulted him. "If any of you fall and break a leg on slick leaves, I'm not carrying your pack." We stepped off. The trail dipped into a hollow where the fog thickened. Our radios crackled and hissed as if the air chewed up the signal. I adjusted the antenna and kept moving. The ground sucked at our boots. Wet leaves slid over rocks hidden just under the surface. We used trekking poles from the ranger station to keep our footing. Every 20 yards I paused, scanned, listened. Small things stood out. A protein bar wrapper wedged under a root. A fresh dent in a sapling like someone had grabbed it and slipped. A boot print at the edge of a pool where a spring bubbled up. The tread looked like law enforcement issue. The stride looked hurried. We marked the trail on the tablet and sent the packet to command through the SAT terminal at the CP. A green check popped up, then spun, then went gray. Chen muttered into his mic. "UAV link stable, but GPS drift is weird," he said. "Map keeps snapping the church back to blank terrain. I can tag a manual pin. It disappears when I zoom." "Hold the pin," Jackson said. We kept moving. By mid-morning, the fog thinned just enough to show the shape of the ridges. We passed a rusted trail sign bolted to a steel post with the lettering worn flat. No names, just a blank plate. Torres took a drink and handed me the bottle. "Feels like the kind of place where sound gets stuck," he said. "Save the poetry," Rui said. "You read 3 books and now you're a bard." 2.5, Torres said. We found a campsite near the river bench. Fresh fire ring, cold to the touch. A tent footprint in the grass. I crouched and brushed my fingers over a zipper tab pressed into the mud. Brand new. We bagged it. Nearby, a small action camera lay under a fern. Dead, no cracks, no water in the port. I dropped it in a pouch for later. "Why do people leave with their camera but not their boots?" Ruiz said. No one answered. The bells came once at 1100. One long toll that rolled through the hollow like it had a weight. We all went still. My chest tightened, not from fear, more from the sense that we were inside something we did not understand. The bell faded. The trees went back to breathing fog. We moved again. At noon, we met Singh's team at the church. They had laid IR trail cameras on the trees and a thin line of fishing wire close to the ground. They logged each with a timestamp and a GPS coordinate. I liked how neat it looked. It made the situation feel like something we could handle. "Pulled a few latent prints from the cruiser," Singh said. "Nothing usable yet. Blood in the driver's seat was O positive. Could be one of the deputies. We'll know later." We ate on the steps. Crackers and jalapeno cheese from MREs. Applesauce pouches. Bottled water that tasted like plastic and pine needles. The bell tower loomed above us. The clapper hung still. I kept watching it like it might twitch. "Drone's up again at 1300, Chen said. "Fixed wing will run a grid. Audio mics focused on the bell. We can triangulate if it rings." "Do it," Jackson said. We split again. Torres and I took the north loop. The forest opened into a skinny field where someone had scraped a picnic table out of construction lumber and left it there. Fresh screws. A soda can flattened under the bench. I put a hand on the wood. It was dry but new. Maybe locals. Maybe the hikers. We logged it. We kept going. That was the rhythm of the valley. Walk, note, mark, send, listen. The routine helped me think straight. It kept the bells small in my head. On the way back to the church, we noticed something off that I could not shake. We had left a bundle of spare batteries under a poncho in our tent at the CP. When we returned, the batteries sat on the ground in a neat line like a row of black stones. No footprints, no smudges. Just a straight line, 6 inches apart. I looked at Torres. He looked at me. "You messing with me?" I said. He held up both hands. "No, man." "Animals did not do that," Ruiz said. He squatted and looked for prints. Nothing. I put the batteries back. I zipped the poncho tight. I checked the tent zipper. It was closed the way we left it. We did not tell Jackson, not then. It felt small enough to file under odd and move on. At 1500, the bells tolled again. 2 long strikes. Chen's mic picked it up clean. He ran a quick cross on the laptop. 3 waveforms, 1 from each drone. The lines should have intersected at the tower. They intersected in open air about 20 feet above the nave. He zoomed in, and the pin snapped back to 0. The software glitched like it could not accept the answer it just gave. Jackson rubbed the back of his neck. "We will set a recorder inside the tower." We climbed the narrow stair and mounted a tiny audio recorder under the bell with a zip tie and duct tape. The air up there was cold and stale. The metal smelled like rain even though the bell was dry. I flipped the recorder on. A red light blinked. "Let it run," Jackson said. We came down and walked the perimeter again. Singh's team checked the wire and cameras. One of the cameras had turned on its own, a few degrees left. He corrected it and didn't say anything else. We all pretended it was wind. There was no wind. Evening slid in quick. We ran a hot wash at the CP. Every man gave a short brief. Every man sounded tired. Jackson assigned watches. I pulled first with Torres. Fog moved through the trees like gray water. Our generator hummed. The satellite terminal blinked green, and then blue, and then green again. Torres poured instant coffee into a canteen cup and breathed the steam. "You think this place is a community spot," he said. "Like people come out here to do their own service. Off the grid." "Maybe," I said. "No pews, though." "Chairs," he said. "Speakers, laptops, modern, like a pop-up church." "What does that change?" I said. He didn't have an answer. He kept watching the tree line like something might step through. At 2100, the bells rang once. Deep, slow. The recorder inside the tower was running. Chen watched the laptop as the audio wave rolled across the screen. The mic in the tower showed a spike that did not match the shape on the drones. It looked more like a pulse. "Could be echo," Chen said. "Could be a bug," I said. We stood quiet for a long time. Around midnight, I walked the line again with Ruiz. Our glow sticks were still taped to the wire. Our trip line was unbroken. In the distance, the church looked clean and white in the fog, like a new building waiting for a ribbon cut. That was the strangest part to me. It did not look old. It looked ready for a service that never started. We swapped out with Singh at 0100. I stretched my back and crawled into the tent. Sleep came shallow and fast. At 0258, I woke to the sensation that the air had shifted. Not a sound, a pressure. I checked my watch. It had jumped forward and then back. 1 minute. The numbers froze for a heartbeat, then ticked on. I stepped outside. The fog thinned for a breath, and I could see the tower clean against the sky. Torres stood near the generator with the radio at his ear. He looked at me and did not speak. The bells rang at 0300. 1, 2, 3. I felt it in my ribs more than I heard it in my ears. The sound climbed up the tower and sat there like weight. Our recorder blinked in the dark inside the belfry. The churches in my childhood had bells that moved when they rang. This one stayed still. We stood in the cold and waited for an answer that did not come. By dawn, we had a list. Trail markers, a campsite, a camera, fresh screws in a table, a neat line of batteries outside our tent, a trail cam that drifted a few degrees, audio that treated the bell like a heartbeat. None of it proved anything. All of it added up to a feeling I could not name. We went back to work. That is what you do when the valley gets strange. You keep the routine. You check your gear. You make another sweep. You hold the line between what you know and what you do not. and you wait for the moment when the valley shows you what it really is. The next morning was routine at first. Gear checks, perimeter sweep, rations. Fog still hugged the ground, rolling between the tents and the church like smoke from a slow fire. Singh's team had stayed closer to the church overnight. They reported nothing unusual, but Singh's face told me otherwise. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept. We regrouped around the hood of a Humvee. Jackson updated command. No sign of the hikers, no deputies, just scattered evidence and the same anomalies. The comms lagged, voices stuttered in the earpiece, like we were talking across oceans instead of a ridge. Command said to hold position, run another sweep, and prepare to exfil in 48 hours if nothing turned up. It should have felt like relief, but I noticed how nobody relaxed. By 900, we were moving again. My squad cut north along the ridge, Singh's team trailing on the opposite side of the hollow. The plan was to box in the area, meet at the river bend by mid-afternoon. Torres stayed close, his radio pack bouncing with each step. Ruiz kept muttering about how the silence was worse than gunfire. He wasn't wrong. Even on deployments overseas, there had been noise. Dogs, generators, people, something. Here there was only us, and the bell that refused to stay quiet. At 10:20 it rang again. One toll, deep and drawn out, vibrating in the trees. Except this time, it wasn't distant. It was close. So close the leaves shook loose from branches overhead. My chest clenched as if the air itself had compressed. We spun toward the church, rifles up, but we weren't anywhere near it. We were a mile north. The sound had come from inside the forest, not the tower. Jackson barked, "Eyes open, push forward." We advanced in a staggered line, rifles scanning, NVGs flipped up. Fog drifted low and thick, shifting with every step. I could barely see 20 feet. Then Torres froze. "Movement!" he hissed. I dropped to a knee, weapon leveled. My sight picked up a figure in the fog, human-sized, standing between the trees, half-shadowed. "Identify yourself!" Jackson called. No response. The figure didn't move, just stood there, arms at its sides. Ruiz whispered, "That's a hiker." "Has to be." We advanced slowly. My finger hovered near the trigger. The closer we got, the clearer the outline became. Tall, thin, civilian jacket. But the head, something was wrong with the head. It wasn't facing us. It was tilted completely back, staring straight at the canopy, unmoving. My stomach turned cold. Jackson ordered, "Torres, flare!" Torres cracked one and tossed it. The red light rolled across the leaves, washing the fog in blood-colored haze. And just like that, the figure vanished. Gone. No sound of running, no branches breaking, just gone. We stood there, weapons sweeping empty space. Ruiz muttered a prayer under his breath. "Not possible," Torres whispered. Jackson called Singh's team. They'd seen nothing on their side. No contacts, no movement. But Singh's voice came through strained, like he was holding back something. "Copy, stay sharp," Jackson said. We pressed on, but the air felt heavier now. Every step felt wrong, like the ground wanted us gone. By noon, we reached the river bend, where Singh's team was waiting. They looked rattled. Their medic, Daniels, was pale, eyes wide. Singh pulled Jackson aside. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough. "Saw one too. Not on drone. Gone when we closed." The same figure. We set perimeter and broke for a quick meal. Torres wouldn't sit. He kept scanning the tree line, his rifle shaking slightly in his hands. That's when the first real incident happened. It started small. Ruiz opened his pack for a snack and went still. "My med kit's gone." We thought he'd misplaced it. We helped him dig through his pack. Nothing. Then Torres checked his own gear. Half his spare batteries missing. My own spare magazines, 2 of them, gone from where I knew I'd strapped them. Someone or something had gone through our packs. "Check the CP," Jackson ordered. We hustled back. When we reached camp, my stomach dropped. Our tents were unzipped. Not torn, not forced, just neatly unzipped. Inside, gear was pulled out and arranged. Not stolen, arranged. My helmet sat on the cot, centered perfectly. Torres' radio batteries were stacked in a triangle. Ruiz's medkit had been laid open on the floor, bandages unfolded and placed in parallel lines. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. We stood there, no one speaking. The fog pressed against the walls of the tents like it wanted in. Then the bell tolled. But this time, the sound wasn't hollow or distant. It came from inside the camp, from the church not 100 yards away. We bolted out, rifles up. The tower loomed above us. The bell was still. No rope, no movement. Yet the sound rolled out, shaking the ground. Torres shouted, "Recorders in the tower!" We sprinted inside, boots pounding the wooden steps. When we reached the top, I saw the recorder still zip-tied under the bell, red light blinking. But it wasn't recording anymore. The file name on the screen read 7. None of us had touched it. None of us had renamed it. Jackson yanked it down and stuffed it in his pouch. "We're pulling the data back to the CP." As we moved out, Ruiz muttered, "Who the hell is 7? Nobody answered. That night, nobody slept. We doubled the watch. Every sound, every crack of a branch sent adrenaline spiking. At 0200, Singh's team reported whispers outside their perimeter. Voices, low, layered. They moved to intercept, NVG scanning. Nothing there. At 0315, Torres shook me awake, eyes wide. "It's in the audio." He had plugged the recorder into the laptop. The file named 7 played back the sound of the bell tolling, clear as day. But under it, faint, buried, were voices. Not words we could understand. Just whispers. Dozens of them. And in the middle, a single clear phrase, "Not yours." I don't think any of us breathed for a full minute. We killed the playback, sat in silence. Outside, the bell rang again. Once, twice, 3 times. And I swear, between the tolls, I heard footsteps circling the tents. We didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. By dawn, we were still alive, but something had changed. This wasn't a search and rescue anymore. This was survival. The sun barely cleared the ridges that morning, but none of us felt rested. Every man had shadows under his eyes. The camp was too quiet, the fog too thick, and the bells still echoing in our heads. Jackson tried to run the morning like it was normal. He gave assignments, checked gear, spoke calm and steady. But I could see it in him too. His voice was clipped. His eyes lingered on the church longer than they should. Singh spread the map on the hood of the Humvee. "Command says we've got one more push before they call it. We sweep east, regroup here by 1600, then sit tight until exfil." No one argued, but nobody looked relieved either. 48 hours felt like a long time when you could hear bells that shouldn't ring and see figures that shouldn't exist. We split into 2 squads again. My team cut east, moving through tight ravines where the fog pooled like water. The routine helped. Check bearings, sweep left and right, keep intervals, listen, report. But small cracks kept showing. Torres' radio stuttered with static. He tapped it, shook his head, muttered curses. Ruiz stopped more than once to dig through his kit, convinced items were missing, though every time he found them buried in the wrong pouch. And me, every time I blinked, I swore the fog held shapes. At 9:30, the bells rang again. This time, the sound didn't spread outward. It tunneled straight down into our skulls. I dropped to a knee, rifle slipping from my hands. My vision swam like I'd blacked out for a second. When it cleared, I saw Torres staring at me, pale, sweat beading on his forehead. "You black out too?" he whispered. I nodded. We pressed on, but the silence after the bells was worse than the bells themselves. It felt like the valley was listening. By 1100, we found the first real sign of the missing deputies. Their badges, both of them, laid neatly on a flat rock, side by side. No blood, no uniforms, just the badges. Ruiz crossed himself. We bagged them, marked coordinates, and pushed the packet to command. The SAT terminal blinked green for a moment, then red, then went dead. Jackson swore under his breath. "Try again," Singh called over comms. Nothing. The uplink was gone. We pulled back toward the river to reestablish contact. That's when Torres stopped cold. "Gear's gone," he said. I turned. His pack was lighter, straps loose. We dug through it. Half his ammo was missing. His backup radio handset too. He looked at me, eyes wide. "I zipped it. I know I zipped it." We spread out, scanning, rifles raised. No prints, no trail, nothing. That's when Ruiz's mic flared. A voice came through, not his, not any of ours, just a single phrase, warped and distant. Turn back. The channel went dead. Ruiz yanked the headset off and threw it into the dirt. Nope. Number, I'm not doing this. Jackson grabbed his shoulder. You hold it together, medic. That's an order. But even Jackson looked shaken. We pressed on. The fog never lifted. At 1300, Singh's team reported movement near the church. Figures in the windows. They were stacking to breach when the figures vanished. When they entered, the building was empty. But the folding chairs had been rearranged into rows, neat like a congregation was waiting. Pulling back to CP, Singh said. His voice cracked. We linked up at the CP by 1400. The church loomed over us, white siding glowing through the mist. Jackson ordered a full perimeter lockdown. No one in or out until we regrouped. That's when Chen pulled me aside. He'd been reviewing the recorder data from the tower. It's not just whispers, he said. His laptop screen showed the audio waveforms. It's layers, different voices, male, female, children, some overlap, some repeat, like a loop. Can you isolate them? I asked. He shook his head. I tried. They don't separate clean. It's not like a normal recording. It's stitched together. He leaned in, voice low. And every time the bell tolls, there's a new layer. I stared at him, not knowing what to say. At 1500, the bells rang again. 4 tolls this time. The sound dropped us to our knees. My ears rang, but not from volume, from pressure, like the air itself was crushing us. Torres screamed, clutching his head. Ruiz's nose bled. When it ended, silence crashed down harder than the sound. That's when we heard the voices. Not from the recorder, not from the radios, from the trees. Whispers, low and layered, circling the camp. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was wrong. Urgent, mocking. Jackson shouted, "Eyes up! Perimeter! Perimeter!" We fanned out, rifles ready. Shadows moved in the fog. Figures, tall and thin, just out of reach. Every time I raised my sight, they vanished. "Movement inside the church," Singh called. We spun toward the doors. They swung open, slow and deliberate. Chairs scraped inside. Jackson ordered a breach. Singh's team went first, stacking on the door, pushing in hard. We followed. Inside, the hall was full. Not with people, with gear. Our gear. Every missing item, every battery, every magazine, every bandage, stacked neatly on the chairs, row by row like offerings. At the front, on the pulpit, sat the deputies' radios. Both of them blinked with a steady green light, though they had been dead when found. The bell tolled once more. The radios spoke in unison. 7. The sound froze us. I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. Then the lights went out. Every generator, every flashlight, every NVG dead. We stood in perfect black, the fog pressing in through the broken windows. And in the dark, something moved. Not footsteps, not breathing, just the sense of presence, heavy and suffocating, circling us like a predator. Ruiz fired first, muzzle flash exploding in the dark. The shot cracked through the hall, echoing off the walls. The presence didn't move. Jackson grabbed his radio. Dead. "Fall back!" he shouted. We stumbled out of the church, dragging Ruiz, who had dropped his rifle. The fog outside felt thicker, pressing against our faces like cloth. Then faint through the trees, I saw them. Figures, 7 of them. Standing in a line, pale shapes against the fog. The hikers, the deputies, or something that wore their shapes. Their heads were tilted back, staring at the sky. The bells rang again. This time, the sound didn't stop. It kept rolling, wave after wave, filling the valley until I couldn't hear my own thoughts. We ran, back to the CP, stumbling through fog, tripping over roots. My chest burned, lungs screaming. Behind us, the bells followed, not fading with distance, but staying inside us, vibrating through our bones. When we finally collapsed at the perimeter, the sound cut off. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. No bells, no whispers, just us, panting, wide-eyed, clutching rifles like lifelines. Jackson finally spoke, voice low. We're not waiting for exfil. No one argued, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. The valley wasn't going to let us leave. Jackson didn't waste time. Pack what you can carry, we move now. Nobody argued. We'd all felt it the night before. The valley tightening around us like a noose. Staying here was suicide. We stripped camp fast. Gear tossed into packs, tents collapsed half-folded. Singh's team pulled the drives from their trail cameras. Chen stuffed the recorder into his vest, still blinking red. Every man moved with frantic precision, the way you do under fire, except there were no bullets, just fog, and the bell waiting to strike again. By 0500, we were on the trail, heading south toward the extraction point. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind. Just our boots crunching leaves and the hiss of radios trying to connect. We moved hard, double time across ridges, cutting through brush instead of sticking to marked trails. Every so often I glanced back. The church was gone, swallowed by fog, but I felt it behind us, like it was walking too. At 6:30, the bells rang. This time it wasn't one or two tolls. It was continuous, a pounding, endless rhythm that rattled our teeth and clawed at our skulls. Men stumbled. Torres dropped to a knee, clutching his head. Daniels vomited. My own vision blurred, edges going white. We pushed on. But then Singh's rear man Carter screamed. I spun around. He was gone. 1 second he was there, rifle raised. The next, nothing but fog where he'd stood. His gear hit the ground like it had been peeled off him. Helmet, vest, rifle, laid neatly in the dirt. No sign of him. Contact! Jackson shouted. We formed a defensive circle, rifles sweeping. Shadows moved in the fog. Tall, thin, human shapes flickering in and out of sight. Every time I tried to lock onto one, it shifted. Then we heard the voices, not whispers anymore. Clear, louder than the bells. Not yours. Not yours. Over and over, circling us, layering until it sounded like hundreds of voices closing in. Torres broke. He opened fire into the fog, tracer rounds slashing red across the trees. The figures didn't flinch. They just stood there watching. Cease fire, Jackson roared. But Torres wouldn't stop. Ruiz had to grab him, wrestle the rifle down. His eyes were wild, foam at the corners of his mouth. They're right there, man. They're right there. We dragged him forward, forcing movement. Staying still meant we'd end up like Carter. By 0700, the fog thinned for a moment, revealing the river ahead. Relief surged in me. Open ground, clear sight lines, maybe even a shot at comms. We stumbled onto the bank and froze. The 7 were waiting. 7 figures stood in a line across the riverbed. Pale, motionless, heads tilted back. I recognized 2 immediately. The missing deputies. Their uniforms were torn, faces slack, eyes white. The others wore civilian jackets, hikers. But the last 2, they wore uniforms like ours, tactical vests, plates, helmets. One of them even had our unit patch. And both of them were faceless, just smooth, pale skin where features should be. Ruiz whispered, "That's us." The bells thundered, shaking the trees. The 7 lifted their arms in unison, pointing at us. Then the ground split. The riverbed heaved, rocks cracking, water spraying. I fell to my knees, clutching my rifle as the earth roared. The 7 stepped forward, moving across the chaos like the ground didn't touch them. Their mouths opened, not in words but in sound. The same toll as the bells pouring out of their throats, deafening and wrong. Jackson screamed, "Fall back! Fall back!" We scrambled up the bank, bullets ripping through the fog. Rounds tore into figures, but they didn't fall. They didn't even bleed. Just kept coming, tolling with every step. Daniels tripped. One of the figures reached him, pale hand closing around his arm. He shrieked, convulsed, and then he was gone. Nothing left but his rifle on the ground, neatly laid across the grass. We kept firing, but it was useless. The 7 advanced slow, steady, relentless. "Toward the ridge!" Jackson shouted. We broke left, hauling Torres between us, sprinting up the slope. My lungs burned. Every step felt heavier, like gravity doubled. The bells pounded in my skull until I could barely see. At the top, we collapsed behind rocks, rifles raised. The 7 didn't chase. They just stood below, heads tilted back, tolling. Then silence. Chen fumbled with the recorder. It was still blinking. He played the last file. The tolls filled the speaker. Then a voice, clear and sharp. 7, 1 remains. We all looked at each other. Jackson's face was gray. They're counting. Counting what? I asked, though I already knew us. They were counting us. We moved again. No plan except to keep distance. The fog closed in, thicker now, like the valley itself was choking us. At 900, the bells rang again. This time from every direction. No source, no origin, just sound pressing in from all sides. Ruiz dropped, clutching his chest. His eyes rolled back, veins bulging in his neck. We tried to drag him, but his skin went pale, waxy. And then, just like the others, he was gone. His medkit sat open on the ground, bandages unfolded in perfect lines. Torres screamed, "They're taking us one by one." We staggered uphill, weapons shaking in our hands. Sing fired bursts into the fog, each one swallowed like nothing. Jackson kept yelling for formation, but his voice was drowned by the tolls. Then the fog shifted, and the church was there again. Not behind us, not miles away, right in front of us, perched on the ridge, white siding gleaming, doors open wide. The bells thundered from the tower. We had no choice. We pushed inside, rifles raised, stacking through the door like it was a breach. The hall looked the same, but the chairs were full now. Every missing person sat there. Deputies, hikers, Daniels, Carter, Ruiz, all of them. Their heads tilted back, their mouths wide, tolling. The sound shook the walls, rattled the steel cross above the pulpit. Torres collapsed, screaming, blood pouring from his ears. Singh dropped beside him, convulsing. Chen tried to pull him up, then froze, his face twisted, mouth opening. The toll poured out of him, joining the others. One by one, the voices layered until it felt like the building itself was alive. Jackson grabbed me, shoving me toward the door. "Run! Get out!" But the doors slammed shut. The tolling grew louder. Chairs scraped as the congregation rose to their feet, all moving in unison, faces slack, eyes white. The 7 stepped forward from the pulpit, pale, faceless, pointing at us. Jackson raised his rifle, screaming defiance. He fired until the mag ran dry. The bullets did nothing. One of the 7 reached for him. Jackson's body went rigid. His eyes rolled back. He dropped to the floor, gear clattering, neatly arranged. I was alone. The tolls surged, rattling my skull. My vision blurred. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head. And then, silence. The church was empty. No bodies, no gear. Just me, kneeling in the aisle, ears ringing. The recorder lay on the pulpit. Its screen blinked one word. 7. Complete. I don't know how I got out. 1 second I was kneeling inside that church, the recorder on the pulpit blinking 7. The next I was lying on the ridge outside, rifle gone, gear scattered, ears bleeding. The fog had thinned. Dawn was cutting across the valley, weak and pale. The church was still there behind me, doors wide open, silent now. I staggered to my feet, every step like walking through water. My chest burned, throat raw. I wanted to call out for Torres, for Jackson, for any of them, but my voice broke in my mouth. The convoy trucks were still at the old ranger station. Dew covered their windshields, radio silent. I climbed into the driver's seat of the lead Humvee and tried the ignition. The engine turned, alive. For a moment I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare. Then I saw the mark, chalk across the hood, a circle with an arrowhead through it. Sharp, fresh lines, and under it, tallies. 7 marks slashed across the hood, the last cut drawn through them all. I froze. My hands shook against the wheel. They weren't just counting, they were finished. I drove until I hit signal. It felt like breaking out of water, like I could breathe again. Command came through the radio, voices demanding status, coordinates, sitrep. I couldn't answer, not in words that made sense. By the time recovery reached me, I was sitting on the gravel, rifle across my knees, eyes on the fog rolling back over the ridge. They asked about Jackson, about Singh, about the missing hikers. All I could say was, they're gone. The report I filed later looked clean. Missing personnel, likely lost in terrain, anomalous audio interference, no confirmation of hostiles. Command stamped it, filed it, buried it. But that's not the truth. The truth is, I still hear the bells. Not every day, not even every week. But sometimes late at night, when the world is quiet, the sound finds me. Hollow, sharp, carried on the wind. And every time I check my gear, I check my doors, I check the corners of the room, because I know what comes next. The 7, they weren't hikers, they weren't deputies, they weren't even my squad in the end. They were something else, something that waits inside that valley, inside that church, behind that bell, something that counts and collects until it has enough. And I don't know why it let me walk away. Maybe it didn't. Maybe I'm just the echo. Sometimes I catch myself staring at my reflection in a mirror, waiting for it to move wrong. Sometimes I dream of the church, white siding glowing in the fog, chairs lined in neat rows, my rifle stacked on the pulpit with the others. And always when I wake, I hear it again. 1 toll, 2, 3, it doesn't matter how far I've come. The bells reach me. That valley is still there, waiting. The church is still standing, whether command marks it on a map or not. And the recorder, the one we pulled from the tower, the one that ended with 7 complete, it vanished from evidence before I ever saw it again. Someone higher up knows, someone buried it, but I can't bury it, because when those bells toll, I feel it in my bones. Like the valley still has its grip on me, like I was supposed to be number 7, and they let me walk out as bait. Maybe the next squad sent in won't be so lucky. Maybe they already went and never came back. I don't know. All I know is that I can't go near mountains anymore. I can't hear a church bell without freezing, and I can't close my eyes without seeing my squad, sitting in those chairs, heads tilted back, mouths open in a toll that never ends. That valley doesn't let go. It just waits. And sometimes when the wind shifts and the night is quiet, I hear it again. The bells get calling me back. You're still watching without subscribing? Fix it now. Subscribe, the next story's coming. And in the comments, share your country and the time you're watching this.